Hello, welcome to this edition of Digital Badge Academy's webcast series. I'm Jim Daniels, your co-host, here along with David Leaser, who's going to introduce our special guest today. David.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks everybody. This we're meeting with Stephen Buckley today, and for those of you who don't know, Stephen Buckley was really is a pioneer in the digital credential space. In fact, Stephen, I think we go back at least 10 or more years when we were developing the IBM Digital Badge program. The way it started at IBM was Jim Daniels and I were focused on the external credential space. Everything from, how do we create certifications for our customers? How do we make sure that our business partners have the skills they need and the capabilities that are demonstrated by a badge? So we developed this external badge program, and at the same time, while we had it on paper, literally, Stephen Buckley was doing the same thing internally at IBM for HR. And so we met. I don't know how we even met Stephen, but we met and we put our ideas together and overlaid our PowerPoint charts, which is what we had at the time, and said, you know what, this makes sense for us to go forward as a consolidated program. So Stephen Buckley and his team really pioneered the internal badge program at IBM. And so now, Stephen, what are you doing now?
Well, I retired, and then I got a call from somebody at IBM said, "Come and help us, Steve. We need some help on badges." I went, "No, no, no. I'm retired. I don't want to do any more work." And they said, "Oh yeah, but we really need your expertise." So I did some work. IBM liked it. The client liked it. They said, "Do some more work." I said, "No, no, no. I've retired. I don't want to do any more work." They said, "Well, we're going to pay you." So I started a little company and now work for myself, and I do consulting, and I work with people in in the digital badge scheme, and really enjoy helping people and designing some really cool badges. Um, so it's lovely to be back with you guys after so many years. I mean, obviously we've talked in between, but certainly when we started the IBM badge scheme, there were at least the three or four of us in the room and a few more, but generally we were the people that were there. So thanks very much for inviting me along. I've got a few slides to share, and then hopefully this is going to generate some discussion.
Yeah, this is really great because a lot of people wanted to go to the Badge Summit in Colorado this year and didn't make it. And you
Mm,
were there, Stephen. So hopefully
I
you
was,
the eyes and ears for people over the next 25 or 30 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
And tell us
yeah.
what you
So
talked about at the event, which was what we really want to know.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So just a little bit of introduction, a little bit more of introduction on me. So as David said, I was heavily involved in the IBM consulting badge program. So IBM has about 100,000 consultants, and the way I got involved was I got asked to write the expertise strategy for IBM Pangalactic, and as you can imagine, this was a year's worth of work, which yeah, was really tedious, didn't really get anywhere, apart from the fact that we had this fantastic idea about digital credentials. And that's where we started to work with David and Jim. First badge scheme I designed was for IBM Industry. It took us about 18 months to do it because they redesigned the industries halfway through. Marketing had a rebrand. But good news is the IBM Industry badges are still out there, still being earned nearly 10 years later. And one of the other badges I'm famous for is designing the IBM Practitioner badge. This was for design thinking, and it's still the most popular badge out of all the badges IBM issues, and it's been issued at least 100,000 times. There's a big debate about how many, but at least 100,000 times. So,
Yeah, and I think, Stephen,
um,
I think that badge is external too. I mean, I think anybody
yes,
watching this can go out to the IBM
absolutely.
site and take that course. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want to go find out about design thinking, go get the IBM, go do the IBM design thinking course. There's a new one now, which is IBM design thinking involving AI. So that's really worth it, and that gets you a different credential. So
Yeah,
that's the
I
sort of things.
I
Yeah.
can tell you for a fact that that practitioner badge has been issued well beyond 100,000 times. So I used to look at that data, every day almost, and yeah, it hugely popular.
Yeah.
I've been separated from that, so I won't try and say how many have been issued up to this point, but
Yeah.
it is a stunning number that have been
There's,
issued. So
there's. So the badge summit this year was, as always, was at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Really great, great event. Some fantastic speakers. there were two big themes that came out of the Badge Summit. One was around learning experience record, and what we jokingly say is that once we work out what the heck a learning experience record is, then we'll tell you. But the second thing that was really popular and people really focused on was durable skills. And coincidentally, in preparation for the Badge Summit, what I was going to talk about, I was doing some work which involved durable skills. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about one of the discussions that I led at the Badge Summit. So as my background, as we just said, is mostly in corporate. So I was going to go and talk to loads of people from further higher ed. So I thought, well, I better do some research and find out what the big issues are and what people are talking about. One of the things that I read was that there was a suggestion that universities were not providing, not teaching students the skills that employers wanted. And I thought, what if this is actually true? So I thought, well, I'll do a little bit of research, do a bit of digging and see what I can find. So I approached this as a little consulting project. So first thing I did was I went to some employers, some big employers here in the UK, went to their websites and said, okay, so what skills are employers looking for when they're recruiting? So I went to sort of BP and the BBC and Barclays Bank and some big blue chip companies, looked at them, did some analysis. Obviously, they want the academic skills, but equally important, if not more, were these sort of skills on the right-hand side here, which are what we call the durable skills. And, you know, you can see here the size of the word depends on how many times it got mentioned. But the typical things we talk about in durable skills, leadership, problem solving, teamwork, are all there. So that's what the employers are looking for. So I thought, well, hang on a second. Let's have a look and see what the universities are providing. So I live in North Wales, and our local university, and I went there, is Bangor University, just across the water. So I pulled down their prospectus and I did some analysis. I was okay. So yes, they teach academic qualifications, but what else? And they were talking about things like employability workshops. They were talking about how they provide peer support and other student support, their fellow students, clubs and societies, sports, work placements, internships, volunteering, enterprising, research, languages, prizes and awards, and that sort of stuff. And I can imagine that 90% of this is common across all universities. So that's what the universities provide. So when you look at the two things, you think, well, hang on a second. There seems to be a little bit of an employability gap, but perhaps it's because the two sides, the two parties, are actually talking in different terms. And if you actually give them a common currency, a common way of talking, then perhaps the gap won't be as big. So I approach this like we approach any consulting environment where we go and talk to issuers about their credential programs. So first thing I did was I said, okay, so let's put together rough and ready credential design framework. So what I did was I identified the different elements they've got. So academic, and then this stuff around excellence and leadership and digital skills and problem solving and global mindset. So I put that framework in there. And I said, well, okay, if you throw on the different things that the universities do, where could you issue credentials? And you start to see, well, okay, so obviously degrees and academic qualifications, you get credentials there, but you also get things for academic prizes. You get things for leadership and problem solving, all sorts of other things you could issue digital credentials for. So, and this seems quite logical to me. So if you did this, you'd probably end up with quite a lot of credentials, and it would be probably a bit of a mess, and it would be really quite difficult to understand. So I thought, well, okay, so let's pull another model out the back pocket and see what we can use. So if you actually go back probably 15 years, there's a model there that McKinsey Consulting produced, which is called the T-shaped model. And there's lots of academic research behind this. You can go and read about it on the internet. But in essence, it's very simple. So if you think about the skills that somebody has in a company or an organization, they have two different types of skills. They have what we call the broad set of skills, which are around the skills that they need to be effective and work in that organization. So these are typically the things we talk about in terms of durable skills, but it also includes some other things in there depending on the company. And then you have the in-depth skills, which are the things you need to be good at to do that job. So and to put the two things together means you can be effective as like a project manager in IBM, as opposed to a project manager in the American government or a project manager in a charity, that sort of thing. So if you put that in there, what do you end up with? Well, this is how it looks. So if you think on the left-hand side, this would be a typical graduate. So they would come out with their qualification, which would be their degree in computer science. Now, if you actually put some credentials on this, you could blow this up so you get a lot more detail. So yes, you get your credential, you get your degree, but you would also have all the different modules that person's taken on that course will be here. So things like networks and enterprise software and any excellence awards. But then you could drill down and you could add in all the different durable skill credentials here, which pull out where somebody's been involved in things like problem solving or teamwork, or where they've done work experience. And you can see here that this allows the employers to see a lot more effectively, a lot easier, what this person's capable of. So that's what I was talking about, and this is one of my pitches.
This is really, Stephen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was
no, it's fine.
I was reading today. I don't know if you know Brandon Bastide. He used to he has his own company called Branded, and he used to be I think he was vice president at Kaplan. But anyway, he just pulled up a Gallup Purdue poll, and they polled students that are graduating from school, and they said that only basically about 3% or something like that, or 2 out of 100 students actually experience the full breadth of things in college. And the things that they were talking about, the things that they, I don't think we've all hit all 10, but a lot of them, have to do with what you're talking about here. Having a mentorship, going and doing an apprenticeship, doing an internship, being involved in an extracurricular activity. So, for example, I think we all did things in school one way or another. And for example, I was editor of my yearbook and magazine and newspaper, but I don't have a leadership badge.
No.
And I don't have one that is about critical thinking or design or some of the other things that I would have gotten for all of those capabilities. So you're right. If the schools really broke down what the college experience was, like you're saying, it would align to the job descriptions.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I've always maintained that it's not an issue of colleges and universities not teaching the right things. I think that the experience that the overwhelming majority of students have when they attend a higher ed institution includes all of that. It's how that experience and the outcomes from that experience are being packaged and made available so that when that student approaches, graduation or gets beyond graduation, they've got the kind of record that makes sense to employers. Like here in the U.S., the higher education environment, they're absolutely glued to this archaic, completely out of date transcript methodology that is of no value to anyone other than the institution themselves. And I know that may sound harsh, but it's absolutely the truth. And that's what I love about what you're presenting here, Stephen, is this one slide right here. This sums it up, right? As to what the higher ed space really needs to be doing. They need to fill in where those gaps are, and they would create a much more valuable connection with the employer space, obviously to the benefit of the student that wants to, get that first job out of college.
But we are starting to see some of the higher ed institutions doing this sort of thing. So Arizona State University has got a really good connection in with Smart Resume, and they're doing some really good stuff. And I saw a good example from University of Phoenix, where they're using their learning experience record. So there's some good stuff out there, but it's not universal. Not all institutions that are doing it, and I think that's where the benefit is, for sure. So I thought we'll have some questions to generate discussion, because we're very quiet, shy people, us three. So so the questions, we've got some questions for us. So what are the durable skills, and have they been defined? And when you think about it, I mean, everybody talks, they need durable skills. So you talk to any organization, they'll say they need durable skills. But do we actually all need to define them? Or do we all need to design our own credentials? Do we all need to work out? Do we need to repeat all that work? Everybody do it, and everybody have a different version. And is the value in having this version of critical thinking, that version of critical thinking, that version? I don't know.
I don't think we do anymore, Stephen, and I'll tell you why. One of the things that we talked about, we've been talking about for like 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Is this whole idea that, we need this universal framework. If we could get this framework, that's never going to happen, ever going to happen. Even within, the United Kingdom to the European Union to the United States, they have all these different databases. I think with AI, there's a lot of good interpretation that can be done to harmonize all of these different things.
Okay. All right.
But on the other hand, it's nice to start with a framework, right? So to start with that, right? But I mean, well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, well, I think that there are certainly benefits in having a number of predefined versions, a small number of predefined versions of durable skill things. So, for example, that critical thinking or leadership. I think there's benefit in that, people adopting those, or at least affiliating to those connections. I think there's definitely value in that, and I think there's a lot of wasted effort going on at the moment. I mean, if you think about it, lots of individual organizations train people, for example, in how to write a resume or a CV, right? And there'll be badges for that. And this is on a lot bigger scale. There's no value in doing this. The value is in identifying these skills and using the credentials. And I think the identification piece is the challenge. So this assessment, how do you assess that somebody's got this skill in a fair, open, and objective manner? So one of the things that the Badge Summit was really interesting was listening and talking to people in different environments trying to do this. So you have people, in community colleges where they have all sorts of different ages and different backgrounds. They even have people who are homeless who are studying. You have people from the Native American tribes who are actually looking at how do you identify leadership and critical thinking when their knowledge and their background is non-traditional. Can they do this? Absolutely. How do you prove it? How do you assess it? And how do you do it so that it's not, it's scalable and usable? And I think this is one of the ways, one of the things where a lot of thought and work needs to go in on this. And I'm sure you've got a view on this one, David.
Well, yeah, there are lots of different ways to do it. And which ones are going to be the most accurate and be legally defensible and validated, right?
I mean, I pulled out a couple of things here we might want to look at. So one of the things that I pulled out was this. This is a different view. So you can see here, this is from My Inner Genius, and it connects in the durable skills at the bottom of the pyramid. But since this is your slide, David, you might want to explain this one.
Well, I mean, the idea behind this is that if you don't get the foundation right, you're not going to have a successful organization. And I think that most people are focused on the technical skills on the top. We know that's true. And they don't focus on the durable skills you're talking about. And those are the transferable skills that, and those are the ones that actually, and there's lots of data that show that those durable skills are the skills that show the most success in an organization. whether it be retention, whether it be productivity. People that possess those skills always outweigh the people that have the technical skills. You can teach the technical skills, and they change every 2 years, right? But if, for example, if you have a person that, knows how to use Salesforce, or they know how to use, some ServiceNow or something like that. But what if they don't have integrity? What if they don't have compassion? Are they going to be good, in support? What if they have the technical skills for cybersecurity, but they don't have ethics?
Yeah.
And we miss the mark by not starting with the foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these are at the bottom, they're at the top on the T-shaped model. But the critical thing is that they are important to be successful in that organization, for sure. So I think this is a really good one. And what I would say, I think what we would say is, don't obsess on one of these models. Use whichever one you want in whatever situation, because they've all got different insights to give you in different situations. I also did a bit of digging. So when I was at the Badge Summit, I was thinking, okay, so has nobody done any work on durable skills? And the answer is yes. There's been a huge amount of stuff done on durable skills. There are some fantastic things out there. If you're interested in, or you're trying to do something on this in your organization, go out and look at this stuff. Education Design Lab has done some really good work around durable skills, and they've actually got micro credentials out there designed with all the frameworks and everything ready to rock and roll. So there's some good stuff there. And then if you go and look at Durable Skills Advantage, they have this fantastic wheel, which has got more detail than you could ever imagine that you need. But it is really good, and it will really inspire you if you're thinking about this and think about all the different areas that you can use. And I'm sure there are lots of other stuff out there. So, if you're working on this stuff, don't start from scratch. Go and find out and reuse whatever's out there, because there's some really good stuff.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, what, like you said, right now there's never going to be the perfect one that aligns 100% to what you want. And I think people let, perfect be the enemy of good in everything, right? And that's been the case in my life with a lot of different things. And I think that, like you said, there are a lot of these that are really close to what you want, and they're off the shelf. And that's how you get started.
Absolutely. Well, as we always say, start, badge what you've got to start. Don't worry too much. Badge it, get on with it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, that tends to be the biggest challenge that people face when they, make the decision that, we're going to go off and we're going to create badges and a badge program. It's taking that first step. It's and it's okay too if you don't get it right. At the beginning, you can always, measure, evaluate, and adjust. Right. That's what I used to always say, and that'll lead you down the pathway to a really, really high impact program.
So bottom line is, the key takeaways, I think, really are that we have to think beyond the technical skills. We have to think beyond the broad macro view of things and start to focus on the capabilities that are needed in an organization, and how do we signal those, right?
The other piece of this too is if we think about, and we kind of go back to, the idea of someone goes to college, let's say all the colleges and universities, they're fully mature in how they're using micro credentials. They're well integrated into the overall experience, and the student can walk out the door with a credential portfolio that is, beyond belief. There's still a challenge of employers, particularly on the recruitment and hiring side of things, not being well prepared to ingest and take advantage of those credentials. And to me, that's kind of like the last mile in the world of digital credentialing, is to get employers to, and some of it may be a little bit of a commercial thing too, right? Are all the right solutions out there that allow employers to be able to pull digital credentials easily into their HR tech stack and take advantage of them? And I think that there's some pieces that are missing there, although I see evidence of things that are starting to surface. But I'd be curious as to what both you think there. I think that remains one of the bigger challenges right now, around this topic.
Yeah. I think everybody knows how to design decent badges, decent badge schemes now, or the information's out there. And the challenge now is on what we call consumption. Organizations consuming this information in a sensible way. And for learners or earners, depending on how you look at it, their challenge is how can they use credentials to differentiate themselves from everybody else, especially when everybody's using ChatGPT to generate their CVs, resumes, and their covering letters. So that it's very difficult to differentiate between any applicant unless you start using things like digital credentials, which give you a verified difference.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I talked to an HR leader the other day, and she told me that she says the resumes she says in the cover letters, she says all look identical. So what are you going to show as true evidence? And it needs to be these badges. But you're right. So we've been talking about this for a while as well, that people have been wrapped around the axle on the badge issuing side of it and not on what's this in service of. It's the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and historically the resume has been the artifact, right? Coupled with, your diploma, if you're a college graduate, and a transcript. But when we think about the world of micro credentialing and digital badges and all of this, and that being, having emerged the way it has, the resume almost becomes a reference document, right? It should include a lot more references and pointers to where the evidence and the validation of what you know and what you can do and what you've mastered, what your experiences are, those kinds of things. Because if all of that's being captured through digital credentialing, or at least a good chunk of it, then the resume takes on a whole new purpose, right? And that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, you can almost think about it as a map to your credentials. So, behind your resume, you've got a set of credentials which justify or support what your claims are on your CV. I think that's where it's going. And I think, when you see some of the early versions of learning experience records or the CLRs, you'll see that coming out there and you see those flavors coming out. But the question is, how can you capture some of the things that are not learning? So how can you capture employment records and things like that in a method that goes alongside skills and experiences?
Yeah. And if you think about this topic, right, around durable skills, in that I would say the overwhelming majority of evidence that someone has that, they've invested in learning and practicing what's necessary to acquire these durable skills probably is documented within a digital credential somewhere, right?
Sure.
I don't know where else you would really find it. There probably are some other instruments out there that can communicate, your investment in competency in these areas, but by and large, durable skills are being represented through digital credentials. So I think if an employer is really interested in understanding, where someone sits within this domain as far as their understanding and ability to go practice these skills, they're going to have to be prepared to look at their badges and other types of digital credentials.
Sure. So going back,
I see it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I see it almost like, in the old days, people used to come along and they used to present their credentials, almost like an ambassador going to see the president. They present their credentials. It's going to be, it'll look and feel a bit like that. I mean, I was at a Leeds City Education Network meeting, and there was a special education needs college there, and what they were talking about was that a lot of their young people find it very difficult to get employment because they're not naturally, given their medical condition, they find it very difficult to explain what they can do. And what this college had done was they had a reverse career fair. So the young people sat down there with a laptop and they put the credentials onto the laptop and they sat there, and then some special representatives of the employers came in and sat down with the individual and said, okay, hello, well, okay, hello, David. Can you tell me a little bit about your badges? And they'd say, well, what did you do for that one? What did you have to do? Did you do this? Did you do that? So that was a way that somebody really creatively, and I can take no credit for it, somebody had used a creative way to present their credentials in a way which was useful and supportive for that use case. And those sort of uses we need to find and we need to pioneer and use, because that will make all the difference in the different cases, not the mainstream ones, the other ones where we need this sort of help and support.
It's interesting that I was going to say that it's interesting that, the idea of having employers come to you rather than you coming to employers is something
Yeah.
a lot of people are talking about that. And how do we get there? But I just, because that's where it needs to come to, right?
Yeah.
Where the jobs come to you rather than you coming to the jobs. I mean, it's messed up.
That would be good. That would be good.
Yeah,
But
you almost have to think of it in this. You made me think of this, Stephen, when you were talking about how someone would come and present their credentials, right?
Mhm.
If you think of someone that is into photography, they want to make a career in photography or graphic design or, something along those lines, having a portfolio is hugely important. Well, what is that portfolio? It's really a record of credentials. It's evidence of work products and things like that
Yeah.
that you've produced, or how you've invested into developing your skills, something that's really tangible. In that, I think all professions need to kind of think along those same lines, right? I mean, we're all not going to have literally graphical things that we can put up on in a portfolio on a website, but we can certainly have a lot more detailed uh, information and data about what we've achieved in terms of how we've invested our time in learning, what were the outcomes that came from that. That's the beauty of digital credentialing, right? To have that all that extra metadata that you can embed in those things, and even pointers to actual evidence, right? Maybe I'm a coder and I can point to GitHub or something where I've got some code that stored that people are downloading and using. What a great piece of evidence for somebody that's, in the IT career wants to go off and be a programmer of some sort, right?
It's quite interesting. One of my friends the other day was saying, he said to me, he said, Steve, he said, have you got, do you read a lot? Yeah. Yeah, I do. I read a lot. Okay. Do you have a Kindle? Yeah. Do you still read book? Do you still buy books? Yes. So why do you buy books? Well, I like the feel of them. I like, I like to go in the bookshop. I like the experience of reading with a book. Yeah, I will read on a Kindle, but I prefer a book. I said, So, well, my son just earned his degree. He said, and it came in a very hard cardboard tube. He said, and it was withdrawn from the tube and it was put out, and the whole family looked at it. He said, and then we went to the shop to buy a frame. He said, and we had it framed. He said, and then we had to work out where it was going to go on the wall exactly so it didn't fade in the light and all that sort of stuff. And he said, the thing is with a digital credential, you're not getting that feeling. He said, I don't feel you're getting that feeling. He said, you've got this sort of Kindle moment. He said, where, you actually prefer the paper version. And I was thinking, yeah, there's a point there, but I don't know what the solution is, but it might be what you're talking about,
yeah,
Jim.
It's a very valid point, actually. And that's why a lot of times when we're working with clients, we talk about don't let digital credentials necessarily be a replacement for something that's tactile, whether it be a certificate that you can print out and put in a frame and hang on a wall, whatever it might be, a lapel pin that somebody may have been getting in the past, continue to do those things, but provide the digital credential to give them something a little bit more portable that can augment some of these more tactile things, help amplify and magnify, some of these achievements, in a digital format, right? Because if I'm obviously I want to have things on the wall, if I'm working in a corporate environment, everybody likes to, to some degree likes to toot their own horn and show what they've achieved. At the same time, if you're someone that has a LinkedIn profile, you want your profile, to be enriched as well. So there you can take advantage of the digital version of that. And then, of course, the digital version can be something that provides a deeper level of insight about that achievement. So I think they work hand in hand, or should work hand in hand, I think is a really good way to think about it.
So what you're saying is digital credentials should be an and, not an or.
I think in a lot of cases, yeah, there are some cases where that might not be the case. If we think about self-assertion, a big topic that has, been circulating for a while, and there's not a lot of folks that have enabled that kind of capability where, I, as someone that's going out, a working professional, I have all kind of experiences. Some things that I go off and do and engage in, there may not be a way to, any kind of a formalized method of credentialing around that to serve as a piece of validation that I know this particular topic really well, both broadly and deeply. It's just something that I've gone off on my own and invested in to learn. Wouldn't it be great if I could, for instance, create my own badge, issue myself my own badge, and then go seek an endorsement for that badge, right, from a trusted authority? And so I think there are cases and situations where, there's not going to be a tactile type of version of recognition. And so a digital credential is a great way to, is a great option. So it's both, but I think in Dave and I just talked to a client yesterday where we were like, look, don't get rid of these other kinds of recognition you have. In those cases, let the badging be a way to amplify and expand the sphere of visibility around that achievement. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it depends on the industry too. I mean, the tech industry, obviously, they're using LinkedIn, they're using digital technology all day long. But, there are other people that are in maybe administrative positions in this hospitality industry. They want something physical to show. But, I have a question for you, I guess, as we wrap, Stephen. Where do you think we're at with the maturity level on this thing? You came back from that conference. I came back from the ATD conference earlier, and I was really surprised by the maturity curve for all of this. We're 10 years into this, and it seems like we're only a couple steps up the ladder here.
Well, I think there are a lot of organizations who have adopted digital credentials and are being quite successful. I think there are quite a few organizations who are not, who need to get on the wagon. I think the more interesting thing is around the sort of the hype curve. So if you think in terms of technology, when technology starts and gets popular, so for example AI, there's a hype curve where this thing is going to cure the problems of the world, and then essentially as people get used to it, the sort of excitement goes off, and people start to lose interest, or their excitement, their focus goes somewhere else. And now digital credentials are on that curve down for most organizations, and the challenge is how do you slow that curve down and get people going up the maturity curve? And the way you do that, I would propose, is around making sure that your badges count for something. So in IBM, we use them for career progression. We use them for all sorts of different internal purposes. And if those credentials count, then they're embedded into where organizations work. And that hype curve, is basically gone into the maturity bit. But all organizations are in a different sort of place on those curves. Some organizations haven't discovered credentials yet and go through the excitement, and then other ones, we're in the mature stage. That's my thinking.
Excellent.
Well, I think that's well stated.
Yeah, I think thanks so much. Back to you, Jim.
I was going to say that's well stated, and you use the magic word purpose, right? If you're going to have a badging program, it needs to have purpose. Each individual badge needs to express purpose, right? Or be in service of something that is useful and valuable. And it's not rocket science, right? I mean, this, You've been doing this as long as we have. So it's just, coming at it with the right approach and being sensible about it and not overthinking it. And you can really have a great program. So before we wrap here, if someone wants to reach out to you, how should they go about getting in touch? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, I'm on LinkedIn, and there's my email there. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm available for consulting and helping people. And if you just want to chat and you're interested in some of these subjects, just reach out to me, and that'd be great to hear from you.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's always good catching up
Thanks,
with
guys.
you. I learned something every time I talk to you. So
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciate it. All right.
Are you looking to launch a digital badging program or improve an existing one? Look no further than Digital Badge Academy. Our highly popular online masterclass will help you gain the skills and insights necessary to achieve success. Enroll now and start learning today.